being said, I'm so happy to welcome Lori Escalera. She is a chalk artist of 25 years. This is her medium. This is her life. And I'm so excited to hear what you have to tell us about it, Lori. So I'm going to turn everything over to you. Like I said, if you need me, just say my name.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Lori Escalera, and I've been chalking since 1994, and that might be actually 27 years this year. It was strange the way I got into this. I was a graphic designer at the time, and I had a client come to me who was an astrologer, and I used to work for an astronomer. So I thought, well, like, what's this astrology thing all about? So I did my one and only barter project. And in that barter project, I was given a reading that said I would be aggressively doing artwork. I'd be traveling around the world. I'd be bringing multitudes of people together through my art. And I thought, oh, like, am I going to hang art in a gallery? And it's like, one of the astrologers said, no, not really. And she said, do you like ceramics? It's like, no, I don't like ceramics. So another astrologer, because I worked on a magazine, so I had all of them do readings for me. And another one told me that I would bring multitudes of people together through my artwork. Years later, it occurred to me, I looked back, and it occurred to me that they had no word for pavement artist or street painter. So they predicted really well what I was going to do for a career. And I thought that was pretty incredible and fortuitous. Okay, so I am going to cover why ephemeral art historically is popular and important now. And because I love history and I love putting things together conceptually in history. And so I'm going to talk all about the history of pavement art. But first, I'm going to give you a 4-minute video on my work that I put together. And so we're going to go to that. So enjoy this. Oh, wait, I gotta click here. Okay, here we go. Okay, let's go to the next. Oops. Okay. So that's kind of my story, 27 years out in the street, and I like to reproduce master works of art. I do some 3D anamorphic work, and I also focus on women and women artists in history. Pavement art is an emergent art. Consider it a joining, a mesh, like joining bubble bath bubbles, which combine to make bigger bubbles under the umbrella of street arts with a multicultural emphasis of people coming together as part of the global urban art movement. It demonstrates the shift away from a culture of materialism as resources are becoming more precious and humans show the effects of that scarcity. We can all notice the world becoming a smaller place because of the digital age. We can see the growth of a variety of street art which avails itself to the masses directly. The proliferation of pavement art and artists, festivals, commercial work, and social political opportunities allow groups of artists who work together in impressive ways to create art on a large scale worldwide. I'm also going to show you some work of some other artists. Working with diverse materials at different levels of ephemerality and under different ethos, pavement artists have successfully bridged the global divide of country to become an emergent global presence. They are an inclusive bunch, often referring to themselves as a family of street painters, and connect in their multicultural interest. Humanity is their focus. Pavement arts are a response to urban blight, accessible by untrained artists called outsiders as a way to do art. It is no longer hidden in the shadows, pejoratively known as graffiti art, guerrilla art, beggars art, or considered vandalism, nor is it discredited because it is commercial-based, naive art or discarded out of hand because it belongs to the ephemeral. Pavement art is no longer unacknowledged because it is non-commissioned, anonymous, quaint, copied, appropriated, or because institutions can't capitalize on it through ownership of it. Gary Palmer has been chalking for probably 35 years. And here's our family of street painters. In the upper left-hand corner, we actually had two street painters get married, and we all went to their wedding, a mock wedding in Florida at the Street Painting Festival on the right. And there's our family below on the lower left. Today, hundreds of thousands of people go to see pavement art exhibition, and more venues for street artists are popping up around the world with better attendance than traditional galleries or museums. More books are being published on ephemerality, more street art is going viral, corporations are hiring ephemeral artists, more tourism, councils, grant money, and taxpayer dollars are supporting festivals. What was once done out of monetary desperation, religious inspiration in the Renaissance Italy, or to rally a cause such as the suffragette movement in England, is now known as a thriving opportunity for any artist who desires to demonstrate a unique artistic vision, skill, talent, and inspiration. European pavement art history from the Renaissance to now is going to be the next subject. In Renaissance Italy, the role of the Modenari was to provide a shared spiritual inspiration among religious masses. The church commissioned the pavement artist, or Modenari, to be its propagandist messenger, honoring the Virgin Mary at a time when symbolic images carried the message to the illiterate. Through a devotional act of creating art on the ground in front of church venues, an otherworldly message of transitory nature, the transitory nature of life on earth was reinforced. The communal celebration, along with the impermanence of art in the street, went hand in hand with inspiring church doctrine and placed the emphasis of salvation as eternal and fixed. The traditional art term vanitas, which uses symbols of impermanence or mortality, focuses the viewer on the temporary nature of life by using the forever of the hereafter to inspire. This is reinforced by the temporary nature of pavement art. One is reminded that nothing is permanent or unchanging in the nature of life. Pavement art is an ephemeral reminder of a passing universe always in motion. Modenari was the name for the itinerant artists who honored the Virgin at their illustrious with their illustrious chalk drawings at the church footstep. They were commissioned by the church and also hired by the public to perform ex votos. Ex votos are artwork which honored others, asking for divine favors such as healing a loved one, or created in thanks for blessings received, such as a betrothal. Using charcoal for human expression has existed for as long as man knew how to extract pigments from the earth and make marks. Our art history books begin with graffiti at the caves of Lecaux and Chauvet, France, 30,000 years ago. 2,000 years ago, we can witness the graffiti found at Pompeii. 600 years ago, we know of the Renaissance Modenari in Italy from church history. And 300 years ago, we have literature from the Scribers in England. Today, we see the pavement artist and artwork going viral as images circulate to anyone, anywhere with a digital device. Pavement arts is only a part of the street arts movement, which includes murals, yarn bombing, sticker arts, wheat pasting, postcard art, guerrilla art, stencils, sanctioned public art, and illicit graffiti art. Pavement art exists as part of the continuum. In the mid-20th century, populist international artist Joseph Beuys stated, quote, "Everyone has a capacity for creation in relevant social spheres," unquote, meaning people in all walks of life have something artistically valuable to offer their culture. People, not elitists sanctioned by institutions. This is the epitome of a populist movement as part of a larger 200-year move towards populism in art. Populism is a movement which deals with the common culture and not generally acknowledged authorities. The art form of scribing, as historically referenced in England, was a product of artists living outside of accredited learning centers trying to earn a living and who could not be part of traditional guild centers. We see trained artists such as Pre-Raphaelite Simon Solomon, who had attended the Royal Academy and was a student of Daniel Rossetti, setting up a pitch in the street, they called it a pitch, in the streets of London to make a living as a scriber. He was an alcoholic who was in the workhouse, and when he got out of, like, it was like the prison was the workhouse, and when he got out, he wasn't really accepted back in academic circles, so he went onto the street, and they called their squares the pitch, and they put out a hat, and that's how he made his living. It is well documented that artists worked as pavement artists and scribed from the time of Shakespeare through to the Industrial Revolution and up to World War II to make a living. Stories are told of pavement artist James William Carling, born 1857, died 1887, who illustrated, you might know him from his illustrations for Edgar Allan Poe. He had great ambitions to be a scriber, and we see here like a chalk drawing illustration that he did. He came and he stayed with his brother in the United States, and he chalked there and back in London. Screevers were mentioned in Mrs. E.T. Cook's 1920 book, The Highways and Byways of London. Accounts of screevers were given by George Orwell in his 1933 book, Down and Out in Paris and London, where he befriends a screever. And who can forget the infamous character Bert in J.L. Travers' 1962 version of Mary Poppins, later memorialized by Dick Van Dyke in the 1964 Disney film Mary Poppins. Not only men, but women too. One such figure is Alice Coleman, who was followed by the English suffragettes who screamed activist messages to fight for equality in the street. Ephemeral arts have been gaining dramatic momentum in the last 150 years. The Eiffel Tower by Gustave Eiffel, you might be surprised to know, was erected only as a temporary installation for the 1889 fair. In 1921, from northern Italy, we have the first photo of a pavement artist named Franz Klammer. In the last 100 years, art exhibition has shifted away from the traditional inaccessible areas such as museums, churches, schools, and private homes of privilege. Street arts is a product of social upheaval, urbanization, and forces born of the European capitalist movement. In 1909, an Italian futurist poet, Filippo Marinetti, set the ephemeral table, so to speak, in his populist manifesto when he wrote, quote, "Beauty exists only in struggle. There is no masterpiece which does not have an aggressive character," unquote. This reminds us of pavement artists' hard work in the street. He further wrote, quote, "We want to demolish museums and library. Italy has been too long the great second-hand market. We want to get rid of the innumerable museums which cover it with innumerable cemeteries," unquote. Marinetti compares museums, libraries, and academies to cemeteries which house dead things, which are useless to visit because they don't inspire acts of creation or action. To admire old master painting is to watch new artists unsuccessfully breaking barriers and pouring their, quote, sensibilities into a funeral urn, unquote. He asserts the uselessness of worshiping the past, quote, "from which you will emerge exhausted, diminished, and trampled on," unquote. The manifesto was his clarion call for the ephemeral and the now in art, and pavement artists totally work in the now. In the next 2 decades, the futurists, this is a futurist painting right here, played with depth and perspective as the 1911 painting, "The Street Enters the House" by Umberto Boccioni, foreshadows the same illusionism as today's 3D straight painters. Dadaism, which began in Zurich, Switzerland after World War I, also foreshadows pavement art. Dadaism prioritized performance, had a populist appeal, mocked materialism, disdained nationalistic attitudes, and prioritized the role of the artist in the artistic process. The political climate of World War I saw the spread of communism, fascism, socialism, and nationalism. In the dystopian landscape of destruction, we see a politicization of artistic energy and movement. The ephemeral is expressed in manifestos which criticize material wealth and ownership of goods. Art becomes propagandist and emotional expression is incorporated into visual art. This emphasis made traditional beauty less important than ephemeral emotion between artist and viewer. It is the emotion of kitsch in art that now is inspired. The populist, ethnocentric, and political message which the artist supplants into the viewer. A period between the 1920s until the eve of World War II was termed the New Sobriety by critic John Willett. This referenced government-supported figurative art used to manipulate the proletariat in both Russia and Nazi Germany. Quote, art should be readily understood by the working class, unquote, which was a quotation by a Russian art group, AKHRR. And Joseph Stalin thought that art should literally look like the sitter. Hitler's Germany used nationalistic blood and soil style painting, enforcing a strict mundane painting style. So as art became censored and acceptable art went into the museum, rebellion awoke for the avant-garde artists to take art to the street. After World War II, the mid-century Fluxus movement inched the ephemeral art scene forward. Fluxism did not agree with the authority of museums to determine the value of art, nor did they believe that one must be educated to view and understand a piece of art. They embraced access, ephemerality, appeal to the masses, spontaneous performances, and introduced art into everyday life. Joseph Beuys maintained, quote, it was the process of creating that was important, not the finished product, unquote. And that is very much like the street painters, like people come out and they come back and they come back and they come back over the course of creating one single piece of art over a weekend to see the process. In 1968, anti-institutional youth movement across the world took artistic experimentation away from the elitists globally. By 1972, the landscape was primed for the emergent rise of pavement arts, which directly address the overarching emotional needs of the public and their hunger for representational work. Abstractionists like Rothko had all but vanished figurative images for the public. The distinct bridge where art on the walls changes trajectory into art in the street is seen in two specific occurrences in the 1970s. First, American artist dubbed Sidewalk Sam was drawn to the pavement, seeing it as an attractive populist art form. While developing his skills, copying master work at the Louvre, attending all kinds of academic formal instruction, Robert Guillemin saw the fine art community as elitists who chose a, quote, side and fought for the glory of the privileged classes, unquote. He felt that art was an, quote, extension of papal see and of kings, and later of artsy-fartsy types who visit museum to look at things like the Mona Lisa, unquote. He was inspired to work on the street after experiencing the traditional fine art path 5 years out of college. The second trajectory is the rise of pavement art festivals at the same time in Italy. In 1972, an Italian journalist, Maria Grazia Frangolini, wanted to chronicle the last remaining Italian Modenari. In 1972, Frangolini collaborated with the Grazie Village Church in Cortone Province, Italy, to gather the last remaining early Modenari from all over Italy, for a competition. At a national level, authorities had become hostile, perceiving the Modenari as vagrants. The church festival was inaugurated in 1425. Oh, I think I put 1475 somewhere, but it's 1425. But attendance was faltering some 547 years later. That's a long time for a continuous festival. It was decided after some wrangling that a new tradition for the Modenari would be tried. According to Kurt Winter, who we call the god of pavement art, quote, street paintings have probably been as old as the festival, but since 1973, they became the main attraction. The art of the street painter is taken seriously here, and the life of those itinerant artists is acknowledged as difficult, but a dignified way to earn a living. The event was such a great success, it was decided the festival would continue, with the Modenari being a revived feature. The first contemporary Modenari festival was held on August 15, 1973, with 8 Modenari as far away as Puglia and Naples. One artist says in a 1984 National Geographic documentary on the subject, which you can find on YouTube, quote, often I'm asked to go away by the guards or the policemen, but the people really appreciate me. This is a way to bring art to the public. I am reproducing masterpieces of great painters and bringing them to the people, unquote. Today, hundreds of global pavement artists every year make an annual pilgrimage to the Grazie della Fiera, which is the name of the festival in Cortisone, at the Grazie Cortisone, Italy, a competitive festival still honoring the Virgin, the tradition of Modenari, and the pavement artists. And there's a picture of Kurt Winter back in the 1980s. Excuse me, I just have to wipe my nose. Okay, and then here's one of Kurt's pieces. You can look him up on the internet. His website also is amazing and has a history of his work over the last 40 or 50 years. And he has huge anamorphic pieces, and he's just so very talented. The baby boomer generation of pavement artists, which first began in the 1980s as a means of virtual veneration and financial independence, as Kurt worked in Italy and funded himself by putting out a hat in the street and made hundreds of dollars, gave way with Winter challenging traditional figurative art with illusionistic creations. Over the next 2 decades, he inspired other artists across the globe to move in tandem with a deconstruction of materialism, a 20th century kitsch iconoclasm, and the growing photorealism movement. A next generation emerged, cementing an academic and representational style of pavement art. In addition, we have the buskers. Buskers who earn their money as traditional performance artists began to draw on public streets across the globe, building on the pavement art movement into the 21st century. Pavement artists of the 19th and 20th century worked in small numbers, doing meager paintings, eking out life as independent artists. The 21st century sees the pavement artist exhibiting in arenas where traditional artists have lost ground, in a world disillusioned by materialism, where museums can't sustain collections, where changing politics require art made instantaneous, and galleries can't survive. Pavement artists are welcome around the world, where the weather is fair and there is a surface to work on. Pavement artists now use 3D illusions as well as virtual reality, which incorporates multiplanar surfaces to make the illusion pop out into the viewer's space, and 4D art known as augmented reality, or AR. AR combines art and technology to superimpose art images which exist only in a digital or virtual reality space and is not in the physical reality. I'm going to skip forward to show you an example of that. So if you look at this slide, you see columns on the left and the right going back. Those columns did not exist in reality. They are a projection onto the space. This street painting that we did, that Kurt designed, is probably about a half a city block long, and the elephants are on the street. They're not built or not dimensional. They're just chalked in what looks like 3 dimensions. And the columns themselves were projected by a projector. And so this whole image is only seen on the computer. So when we were at the festival, if you kind of look, you can see people on the sides of the columns. So you would look up on they had a big projector screen above all this. And so they projected what was on the street up into the projector, and then they superimposed the columns. And so that's augmented reality. It augments the actual reality that's there. And then if you look in the back, you see the ballerina in the cage. She's also on the ground. But when you look on top of the cage she's in, that little marionette box actually is standing up vertically. So it's a combination of 2D, 3D, and 4D spaces. And I have a little video on that we're going to get to too. So let me go back. Okay, so here I have a variety of slides that show you, this is back in 1993, and in Indiana Jones and Snake Pit by Peter Boyce, Jenny McCracken, Bev Isaac, and Ula Taylor. And you see there, it took them 7 days. And again, this is what you see down below. The snake pit is all on the ground. It's an illusionistic piece. And this is Edgar Mueller. He is self-taught, and everybody, when things started first going virally on the internet, I'm sure you saw his work. If you've seen anything, his work was super large, like these big crevasses and these fire pits and these ice things. And he would cover those areas like a whole block all by himself. With one partner. He was extraordinary. He's an extraordinary pavement artist. And this is one of my favorite street painters, Eduardo Rolero. You can write, if you have a little notepad, write his name down, go look up his work, friend him on Facebook. He has a very unique artistic style that kind of reminds me of one of the 19th century famous artists, and he's very comical and very facetious and very political in his rendering. He's brilliant. I think his artwork is amazing. He does great 3D artwork. Ruben Poncia, he was the one that got married to Audrey in one of the photos above. He's also really talented, does great 3D artwork. Minimal formal education. There's Audrey on top. That's the gal that he married. She's from Mexico. She's also very talented. And so is her brother, Carlos Alberto. They do murals. They do pavement art. Carlos does spray as well as other forms of art. And they're just so talented and so wonderful. Here's another piece by Eduardo up in the left, and that piece is on the upper left, is on the floor. It's on one wall, and you can see the corner of the wall and how it goes on to the other wall. And so that's the illusion of anamorphic. And unfortunately, I didn't take a photo of it distorted the wrong way, so you would see it's all stretched out and really weird looking. And then Leon Kerr, who's also well known, and does huge pieces, absolutely huge. That's a 3D piece of his, and he's from the Netherlands. And Philip Henzo also does great 3D work, and he's from Russia. And I just feel really blessed that I've gotten to street paint with these artists over the years. Okay, then this was the circus, and let me get back here. Okay, so let me see what time it is. I think we can do, yes, we can do it. Okay, so we are gonna do, I'm gonna show you a video, a part 1 and a part 2, and it's gonna show you the street painters, how we all got together in Sarasota, Florida for a couple weeks doing 15 artists doing the circus. And then we also did our own independent pieces. And so, and then there, I'm going to show you an inside of the life that we lead when we're together, because that's part of it. I used to make all these little videos that I love to do because they were very memorable and for me. And it was about the culture of where I traveled to, like China and Mexico and Canada, and all the people I would meet. It's a wonderful way to travel. But you'll see here life inside for the street painters, how we sort of make do with what we have. And it's really nice, I think. So let's go here. And you had to be three levels up to get that shot for the circus. Like they had to build a scaffold, and you had to go 3 levels up to take the picture from the right perspective. And it was at the Sarasota Chalk Festival, and it was just amazing. It was like 2 weeks before my first full hip replacement, so it has extra memories for me because it was a really painful trip. I had like no cushion left in my right hip, and so I was there in a lot of pain, but it was well worth the pain. Okay, here's part 2. So the rain, we were there for like 2 weeks, and the rain held off till the very last night. So that last shot was my piece as it washed away. And there were, I think, like 250 artists, 230 artists, 250 artists from 34 different countries around the world, from Japan, from Russia, from Peru, from Argentina, from Italy, from France, and from Canada and Mexico. And they come from all over the world and get together. And it's just an amazing, amazing experience. So in 2014, they moved the festival in Sarasota over to Venice, Florida. And we did the Megalodon Shark, where 50 artists got together for about 2 or 3 weeks and did a design under Kurt Wenner's. He got sick, so I think he got sick or he got a project. So Julie Kirk stepped in and directed for his design. And we tried to break the world record for the longest 3D pavement art. This is on a runway at the Venice, Florida Municipal Airport. And it's like absolutely huge. And it's so much of an undertaking to do something like this. And then after my second hip replacement, on the other hip, I returned and I was part of, again, like 50 artists that did the Sick Bacchus on the another Kurt's design on the other freeway runway adjacent to where we did the Megalodon Shark. And my little part on this is the very, very top of the wine thing. Looks like just a little peep of wine up there is actually the length of a football field back. It's hard to tell because in space, when it's foreshortened like that, it's really, really large and it just looks small. Okay, the reason for doing pavement art is I can talk about the engagement to the audience and the thrill of being with 300,000 people over the weekend compared to 30 who might show up at a gallery reception and maybe come for the free wine and cheese rather than the art. We trade in our studio privacy for the excitement of creating in rugged outdoors, lost in a transcendent experience. Instead of lasting 500 years, we strive to create artworks for a weekend, a single day, even a marathon of 4 hours, and create art the size of a dining room floor. The relationship between artists who work in the street as a sanctified chapel calls to our attention the power of the pavement artist. Sanctity means piety, goodness, virtue, all of the things the pedestrian street is not. People walk by dropping cigarette butts, having stepped in dog poop, dropping trash, and where cars furiously leak oil. Rain brings whatever filth, debris, or contamination exists in the environment into the artist's working space. The ritual act of creating art in the secular street hallows our space. Artists bend in an attitude of prayer, kneeling in a desecrated space to perform a righteous artistic ritual. In the ephemeral act of making street art, the artist joins the rank of historical iconoclast heretics, knowing creating art the art they create is doomed to destruction. At its core, artists are communicating they won't be manipulated, their product commoditized, limited to their public, or denied access. The artist is in sole control of their creative skills and does not need to compete for the privilege of being rejected by any institutional authority as not qualifying, such as in a museum, such as in a gallery where you have to apply to be exhibited and 199 times out of 200, you're rejected. Artists throughout time are driven by intense agitation towards government abuses, greed, and civil injustice. Pavement art is a particularly effective medium because of its immediacy in delivering a message now. In an environment where not only is the message larger than life and unable to be ignored, but it can be carried virally around the globe in a single moment. There is no waiting for the printer, no money needed to buy a newspaper page. There is no asking, can I put this message in front of you? It is just there. No time lapses between wanting to say something and waiting till it can be printed or waiting till it can be given a gallery exhibition date. So the reason I selected this was because Eduardo did this the day Donald Trump was like elected, and he's from Argentina or Spain, and Donald Trump isn't his favorite person. So he there on the spot could create this artwork that was a political message of what he wanted to say, propagandist message, if you want to call it that, and it was immediate. So there were a lot of people that didn't like it. It was very controversial, but you don't have to wait. You can do it immediately. So that's kind of a nice thing. And then here are some slides of some well-known artists that have done some nice work that I really like, that I thought you might like to see. Julie Kirk Purcell, she does lovely work. She's been doing it for a long time. Kwong also does really nice artwork. I think he's retired from street painting. If you're an artist, you might know his work from Facebook, where he does a lot of master painting now. He's just an amazing artist from Vietnam originally. Marion on the right is from Germany. She's a busker, so to speak. She's out there in the street making her living in Germany and travels around Europe and wherever she's hired to go. And Wandras Vera up on the upper left, I liked his artwork a lot. And Ann Hefferman down on the bottom, she's out of Santa Barbara and she's been street painting for I think about 30 years as well. And she does amazing, very unique with nature and textures and street painting. It's really different. And then the piece in the upper left is Leon Kears, and again, a social political message. And it's a whole football field long, and did that at the last international festival in Venice, Florida. Like a lot of these festivals, this one especially incorporates other mediums like mural arts and dance and performance. And then the pavement artist cannot satisfy restrictive criteria, which perpetually keeps galleries out of reach. Quoting Kurt Wenner, quote, "Ever since its inception, art galleries have modeled themselves after museums by presenting art in finished form. Although the approach seeks to give importance to the work through this association, often a wall is generated between the public and the artist. In past centuries, artists have had more direct contact with their patron and the public. Pavement art events and street painting festivals fill the need for artists and the public to communicate with each other," unquote. "It is the public who provides the legitimacy to the artist, not a gallery owner, museum, or occasional sale. Many traditional artists are frustrated in their attempts to share their artistic talents. They leave traditional venues disappointed, egos bruised, their effort to exhibit costly. Think of how different it is for the pavement artist, successful the very moment the talent is revealed on the pavement and a person shows up to pay tribute. It is the artist's power which sanctifies his space. As master of his destiny, like a lamp, needing no electricity, continuously shining, powered by the public. However, pavement artists can make it work alone, busking on a street corner, in multitudes at a festival, or even this year in their driveway, and gathering virtually online. They make it work. the pavement artist is all in, and I believe for the long haul. So this piece I did in Victoria, Canada, British Columbia, a few years back. And right when I finished, I took a picture. I have a really nice picture of it on my Facebook page. And 3 minutes later, after working on this for 2 days, it like, I don't know if you can see it if you're using a phone, but there's all this water going through, like a huge downpour. So that was it. That was it. Finished just in time to take pictures, and then it was gone. So good. Okay, so I did my hour. I like to be like timely, but I have like a few, I'll answer a few questions. I wrote a few questions down that people have been asking for 27 years. And so I'm going to answer, I wrote those questions down. I'll answer those, and then we can turn to the questions that you guys ask. So everybody always asks, what happens if it rains? Okay, like the sky is crystal clear blue, bluer than blue, the sun is shining, but they want to know what you do if it rains. So my stock answer is I go home and put on a movie and make some popcorn. So so like in 27 years of doing this, I've never not finished. Sometimes I have to alter what I'm doing a little bit for the weather, and sometimes you put some plastic down if it's available, but I've been blessed and it always works out, and that's just the nature of ephemeral work. Some people say, it makes me so sad to see that this isn't permanent. Can't you make it permanent? So what I say to those people is, you know, you don't have a problem when you go to a concert or to a movie or, you know, to the park or to the theater, you know, like everything's over with, everything's done and over, and then you go on to the rest of your life. So permanency is just a big illusion. Like you go to the museum, you look at a Van Gogh sunflower thing, and then you're done with that museum, and you have the experience in your head, and you don't go back to that museum usually to see that Van Gogh thing. And so street paintings like that, if you look at it as a performance art, it makes more sense. And then everybody goes, oh yeah, you're right. What kind of chalk do you use? So we use not oil pastels, we use chalk pastels. And let's see if I can put this up without dropping it. This is the traditional kind of set, pack of 24. They make a pack of 28. And we've been using this for 27 years. It's Kosser SMI brand, really nicely pigmented out of Korea. And then I just love, I just brought a box. So like, see, I have this collection of like all different kinds of chalks, and I sort them by colors. And then before I go to a festival, I like sort through them all, and I pack up the colors I will use. And it's kind of this whole ritual process. And I also like street sticks, these big fat things by Jack Richardson and Fine Art. And they're like 4 sticks in one. So if you have like a really big space, you don't have to work as hard. You can put the big chalks down, and I buy chalks that have a lot of color in them because it's all about the color. What happens at the end of Sunday? So another stock answer is I go home. I don't know. Like all the venues are different. Some of them use street sweepers to like pick up the stuff. Some of them use power washers. Some of them just let them stay. They're all really different, but it used to be a long time ago that they did have to wash them all off when they were in the public street because the next morning cars would rubberneck and then they'd rear end each other. So it was really kind of a liability. So they generally take them off. Have you seen the 3D ones on the internet as they're standing in front of a 3D one that you're doing? Have you done this before as you do a master work of art? Are you getting paid? Oh, and I saw that was one question in the chat thing. So, okay, I get paid. I made my living off of doing street art for 7 years, getting paid. I had a mortgage to pay. And so I entered street painting. But I was an artist. I was a graphic artist for last been in business since 1981. So for me, art was a way that I made my living. So when street painting came along, it's like, oh, I can make living on this. So there was a lot of people hiring for trade shows, and somebody found me. I put my pictures up on the internet in 2000 and 2004. Somebody just called me out of the clear blue and said, we found you on the internet. Do you want to come to Atlanta, Georgia and work a trade show and do chalk? I said, sure. And that started my traveling days with chalk. And then now I'm kind of with COVID, it's kind of changed things for me. So it's not, for me, I'm blessed. So it's right at this time in my career that I can choose projects I want to be involved with. And it's more about giving back now. I did my career and made my living, and I'm fortunate I'm in a position. So now it's about if I can help raise money for other causes or do good things. So in May, I did a great piece for the local hospital for the first responders, and I did that as a donation. So it's great. And I still think there's opportunity for good artists to get paid. Plenty of work available, not for everyone. The festivals don't pay for everyone. They pay for really good artists to come. So it's like anything else in art. If you set about it to make a living and be an artist and do it professionally, you get paid. You can do it for fun though. That's the whole populist part of this though. And then people ask, you're kidding, you get paid to do this? It's like, yeah, I went to school, I got 3 degrees, I'm like an artist. I don't know how to answer that. And then so one of the questions is, how long you've been working on this? And this is always kind of a funny thing, because you don't really know what people are saying. And this guy, Eric Greenwald, I came across what he had written. It's and I thought this was pretty funny, so I just copied it from him, but it's basically what happens. Them, how long have you been working at this? Me, about 8 hours. Them, no, I mean, when did you get started chalking in general? Me, about 10 years ago. Them, how long have you been at this? Me, about 10 years. Them, no, I mean, when did you get started on this piece? It kind of goes in a big circle because nobody knows what they're talking about, me or them. And then there's always the proverbial, would you like to do a mural at my house? No. And but actually some artists do get business out of this. And then they also ask commonly, can you seal it? And it's no, you can't seal it because chalk goes transparent. If you want something to be permanent and sealed, paint it. And I did do a sealed street painting once, but it was 13 layers of spray. It was a pain in the butt. Never do that again. And then, is that you in the drawing? So I could do a picture of Caravaggio. Boy Bit with a Lizard comes to mind, or Boy with a Fruit Basket. So Caravaggio had a muse, I guess. I'm not sure it was him or a muse. And it's a teenage boy. And every time I do a Caravaggio piece, I get people asking me, is that you? And it's yeah, it's a 13-year-old boy. I just can't figure it out. I'm a 63-year-old woman. So I don't know about that. But that's kind of about it. So I guess I will turn back over.
So I will say thank you so much, Lori. This was really, really great.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
We got lots of great questions. I can really see that people stuck with it. We're really interested. So thank you so much for coming to us all the way from across the country to educate us on chalk art. I feel
well, thank you for having me. And if anybody wants to reach out to me on Facebook, and I'm happy to answer more questions if you think of them later, or you can follow my work there, because I do other forms of art too, like a lot of painting, and I have some videos on my Facebook page of painting lessons for free that you could go look at if you want to do art. They were done for COVID, since people were stuck at home, and I had some friends who were in their 80s and 90s who were kind of bored. So I said, I'll make some, and they were artists. So I said, I'll make some art lessons on Friday. So I did that for 5 weeks. So
I posted the link to your Facebook profile in the chat if anyone wants to grab that up. That's the best place to follow you.
Nice.
All right.
Okay, so you all take care and hope you all are healthy and have a good start to your new year and stay out of the dangerous snow if it snows and thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who attended, and have a great evening. Good
Thank
night,
you.
everybody.